Anne, who has spent so much time trying to return to Earth throughout the course of the show, is now on Earth and is trying to return to Amphibia. The question is why? Really, why? I do not think any of us really think that she should stay forever on Earth and never go back to Amphibia, especially considering how much Amphibia dearly needs her help. But the question of why exactly she really wants to return is a pressing one that should not be ignored or neglected. Aside from her brief moment of honesty in the new normal, when she is willing to admit what happened to her in the past, and the unresolved loose ends that are her relationships with Marcy and Sasha, Anne has been largely unwilling to look inward and consider why it is that she needs to go back to Amphibia and why she is so desperate to do so. Part of me doesn't blame her. The weight of her burdens and her responsibilities and all the forces that are far greater than her own will and ego, like the perspectives of Marcy and Sasha, whose perspectives Anne did not consider might clash with hers. The weight of all this is so existentially unmooring that one cannot blame Anne for wanting to deflect any attention from that and instead focus on a much more reasonable and easy to achieve goal like returning the Plantars to their homes in Amphibia. Now this is interesting because the Plantars, for their part, have no problem with being on Earth. They have a nice family in the Boonchoys who took them in and are willing to treat them as full members of the family, at least after a little time has passed. Now, I do imagine the Plantars do eventually want to return to Amphibia. That is where they have spent all their lives. That's where all their friends and close connections are. They would love to see the town of Wardwood again. But they're in no hurry. If they're stuck lingering on Earth, experiencing new sensations in 21st century Los Angeles, that's fine with them. I love how thrilled they are to go to a movie in the episode Mr. X, an experience that is mundane to a lot of us, but is special and new to them. Anne is the one who is desperate to return to Amphibia. How she is going to do this is an important question and one that will be covered in this video, but I also believe it should be considered why Anne wants so desperately to return to Amphibia. What are these psychological underpinnings beneath that repeated desire she voices? Why is Anne not being honest with herself about the pressing issues that are compelling her to turn around and leave the home she has spent 2 seasons working tirelessly to return to? Sasha and Marcy are still in Amphibia. The last time Anne saw Marcy, Marcy was being stabbed through the chest with a flaming sword, and Sasha was demonstrating that she was willing to sacrifice herself to help Anne get home. For all Anne knows, they could both be dead right now. Anne is trying not to believe that, but she also has absolutely no reason to believe that either Sasha or Marcy is in a comfortable position right now. The close relationship between the three of them that they'd benefited from since childhood, since they were very young and innocent, that relationship seems on the verge of disintegrating, with Marcy and Sasha's secrets being revealed. They are forced to reckon with the fact that what they had believed about the bond between them was not true. Did not all have the same goal. They did not all have the same opinion and perspective on Amphibia. In this new fantasy world, they develop different desires and different wishes correlating with the different people that they are and have become. The relationship is in desperate need of reevaluation. Anne casts herself as the one who has been betrayed, and even if she is the one, though, who is more sinned against than sinning, to quote King Lear, she is not a perfect friend. She has flaws that she stubbornly refuses to consider flaws. Whatever you want to say about Sasha and Marcy, but they are willing to look within themselves and reconsider whether they have made the right decisions, not just on a case-to-case basis, not just, oh, I might have done this mildly immoral thing, but on a basic level of, am I the person that I really want to be? Anne is not as willing to do that, even though she tried to hurt Sasha when Sasha wasn't fighting back, refused to listen to Sasha, even when Sasha had some very important information, refused to even hear Sasha out, and also was not particularly willing to consider Marcy's perspective. Marcy is indeed quiet and not as willing to voice her own opinion as the other two, so I don't entirely blame Anne for not knowing how Marcy feels, but Anne also never tries to learn how Marcy feels. She never is willing to look at the relationship between the three of them from outside her own personal perspective. These are major issues that Anne needs to consider, and it's strange that she's not considering those issues. Now, for the whole invasion plan, that is also a big threat, but I can see why she's not as willing to obsess over that. The invasion plan is abstract right now. It's a distant possibility in the future. There's been this one robot who tried to kill them, and that's obviously not good, but there's a big difference between one robot who's relatively easy to defeat and an entire army of thousands of robots invading Earth. Anne has a lot of time to believe that Earth is safe, that Los Angeles is a comforting place compared to Amphibia, that it's a place where she can relax and try to glide above all the sorrows and anxieties and anguishes that she has suffered throughout the first couple seasons of the show. This is, of course, not a functional plan long term, practically or psychologically, but one can understand why this would be appealing to Anne. Still, the specter of the broken relationship she has with her friends should continue to haunt her, and I have to suspect that it does in some way. Instead, she spends a lot more time caring about the Plantars. Why? I'm not saying she needs to love Sasha and Marcy more than the Plantars. In fact, we've seen repeatedly that she cares more about the Plantars. When she has to choose between them and her friends, she chooses the Plantars. But nonetheless, the Plantars are not in any immediate danger, whereas Sasha and Marcy are. Her concern for the Plantars on Earth is not very well grounded, whereas her lack of concern for her friends, who are in a perilous position trying to fight a tyrannical regime in another world, seems kind of callous, considering the mortal peril those friends are in. That we do not see Anne constantly obsessing over her friends, constantly wondering if she could have made a different choice, constantly doubting herself and doubting her relationships with her friends, makes her either cold-hearted or in self-denial, and we know she's not that cold-hearted. So Anne is going to try to return home, both for the reasons that she gives herself and for the more urgent and dire reasons that she refuses to acknowledge. it is possible that she is not going to return home before the midpoint of the season. There is a Christmas episode, but it is described as her and the Plantars being on Earth. So, we should consider that. There is an episode that is about her trying to get home with the help of that blue-haired scientist we see in the intro. It's called If You Give a Frog a Cookie, which could be both a fun and a narratively important episode. But that would be kind of weird because the Christmas episode seems to be taking place after the episode where she tries to find a way to return her and the Plantars home. And it would be awkward having a Christmas episode anyway, because based on Anne's birthday being when we know it is, and based on her being gone for 5 months, it's safe to assume we're in January or February now. Christmas is a long way away. So I'm not really sure how they're going to have a Christmas episode unless they distort the timeline a bit. But what's important is that Anne might not be returning to Amphibia until Season 3B. I predicted that, and I think that is one of my rare Season 3 predictions that came true. I also predicted that we'd get a lot more episodes in Amphibia before Anne returns home, and I am quite disappointed that that prediction did not turn out to be true as well. That is disappointing, and it looks like we might only have a grand total of 2 11-minute episodes, Turning Point and Yunnan and Olivia, that take place mostly in Amphibia throughout the entire Season 3A. But it's been great to see Anne's parents, and I'm really interested in seeing how she reacts when she finally sees her friends again in Season 3B, if we have to wait until then. It'll be quite an interesting development. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. I have no idea what direction the show is going to take next. I've been consistently wrong when predicting what direction the show is going to take throughout Season 3. The choices Season 3 tends to make baffle me, but let's hope it all comes together soon. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming in a couple days. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.